Chernobyl is the city in Ukraine located about 56 miles northeast of the capital Kiev. Prior to the disaster and subsequent evacuation, it was home to around 14,000 people. At that time, it was still a part of Soviet Union. The city was the location of first ever nuclear power station to be built in Ukraine. But on the 26th of April 1986, disaster struck when the reactor number 4 exploded. The town is still home to around 690 people. Although it is now somewhat of a ghost town with animals occupying many abandoned buildings, most of the residents live about 19 miles from the disaster site in the Chernobyl explosion zone, and surprisingly, international tourists flux to the area. But what exactly happened in Chernobyl? That's what we will find out today. As CNN reported in 2016, if you visit Chernobyl now as a tourist, you will be taken on a strict guided tour of what was once a busy, if not small city. Photograph shows a place that has been frozen and overgrown, a kind of spooky remnant of a town where people once lived and worked, and where kids played on the now unused Ferris wheel. The explosion at the nuclear plant is rated as the worst nuclear disaster in the history of the world. Radioactive dust was sent far and wide, transported by winds as far as Sweden. The number of deaths directly related to the initial explosion is thought to be about 31, although the WHO reports that a further 50 deaths have happened later as a result of massive exposure of radiation on the day. These deaths were mostly workers and rescue workers. Few people died as a result of injuries suffered because of the blast of the explosion. The WHO further states that around 4,000 people in total can be attributed to radiation exposure because of the event. On the day of disaster, thousands of people were exposed to high level of radiation, with the WHO saying these people are at the high risk of having cancer in their lifetime. Even the millions of people that lived mile away from the site, other parts of the Soviet Union, were exposed to high level of radionuclides and they too are more at the risk of regarding cancer. On the top of that, many of those displaced suffered financially and psychologically, especially because of some were never given sufficient information regarding the danger they had been exposed to. According to recent reports, areas at least 90 miles away from the accident sites are mostly radiation free, although some lakes and forest lands are on no-gas areas or at least restricted to the public. In the most areas, the problems are economical and psychological, not health or environmental, said Dr. Mikhail, our radiation expert and scientific secretary of Chernobyl firm. So yes, this is now a tourist spot for those who wants to see what was a ghost town looks like. We looked at blogs written by travelers who have visited the exclusion zone. One of them wrote that when she was invited, she thought it was a joke, thinking like many people that visiting such a place was too dangerous. She wrote that in the absence of people, the area has once again become home of wandering bears, wild horses, deer, foxes, wolves, and dogs, and lots of stray dogs. While you are told not to touch things or eat or drink while on the tour, the radiation level are checked by your guide throughout the visit. I felt like I was walking through a horror theme park, she said, of an abandoned kindergarten, saying those words still hanging around. Anyway, you get the picture. Let's now talk about what happened on that fateful day. Okay, so according to World Nuclear Association, this is how it went down. We will try and explain it as clearly as we can because it is not at all that simple if you don't work as a nuclear power engineer. The workers at Chernobyl reactor 4 were performing a test to see if the turbine could provide enough energy to keep the coolant pump running if there was a loss of power, and if they could keep them running until the emergency diesel generator kicked in. They had done this test before, but the test had been unsuccessful. They turned down the reactor to 25% of its capacity, but the problem arose when the power plummeted to 1%. They then tried to increase the power, but what ensued was massive power surge. The reactor's emergency shutdown failed. One engineer had wanted to abort the test, but was told by senior to carry on. The reactor then became even more unstable. This caused considerable pressure, and according to one step-by-step report by one engineer witnessed, the 1.5-ton blocks at top The fuel channels of the upper biological seal began jumping ups and down, and you could feel the shock waves throughout the building structure. What did he do then? Of course, he ran for it down a series of steps to report what he had seen to others. Some failed, there was no water flow, and the reactor started to make loud noises. As another website tells us about the sudden increase in power. Peculiarity of the design of the control rod caused the dramatic power surge as they were inserted into the reactor. Hot fuel combined with cold water created a mass of steam that could not escape and caused lot of pressure. This lifted a 1000-ton leak, and here we have the start of radiation leak. Air got into the reactor and caused the graphite fire. An explosion happened when hydrogen was formed by hot water, steam containing zirconium. This was a much bigger explosion than the first, and it threw debris everywhere. Power went out, except for battery power lightning. The air was filled with dust. One man died, and his body was encased all the debris. Burning fuel started fire everywhere, and radiation was cast into the atmosphere. All the internal phone line went down, and workers fled from scene. Firefighter arrived, apparently unaware of the danger they were in due to radiation leak. Joke about it, saying must be an incredible amount of radiation here. We will be lucky if we all still alive in the morning. He was kidding, but he was not far off. As one woman explained, the next day she found out there had been a fire, but the kids still played. They went to school. People still milled around in the street, even though she said all the roads were covered in the water and some white liquid. Everything was white and foamy. She added that she wasn't told about the danger of radiation, stating about the radiation. The radioactivity was escaping. There was not a word. The reactor was filled with water, but then flooding was a problem. After that, for days, thousands of tons of clay, sand, boron, dolomite was dropped by helicopter in the burning reactor to quell the fire, but also tried and prevent its spread of radiation for 10 days. A large amount of radioactive substance prevent the air. Most of its falling is dug into nearby areas, but smaller particles spread far and wide, carried by wind. We all know what happened next. We should have run numerous scientific theories as to exactly what happened that day, and this is just a basic summary of the most widely held belief. Hopefully something like this will never happen again. Would you ever consider visiting Chernobyl? Will tell us about in the comment section. Thank you.